This early archive film shows a staged reenactment of one of the most famous battles in U.S. history. On June 26, 1876, 25 years before this film was shot, the Plains Indians had fought the U.S. 7th Cavalry and killed them to a man. In Hardin, Montana, near the site of the battle, the tradition of remembering Little Bighorn continues year after year. The tourists come to watch not just a reenactment of the battle itself, but to witness a pageant telling the events that led up to that battle. The story of how the whites came into the plains and of how the Indians resisted this invasion of their tribal lands. What's presented is the story of a clash of cultures as old as history itself.
Throughout the world, throughout all times, human beings want to conquer each other. And so that's the same thing here, especially when they find a new area that's still kind of open, ready to be conquered.
The Lakota had fought back right from the start. They'd harassed parties of settlers. They'd fought skirmish after skirmish with the U.S. troops. And for one brief moment in 1868, they thought they'd won. But the Fort Laramie Treaty promising the Black Hills to the Lakota was broken, like so many others.
A treaty stands so long as the dominant party keeps its words. But the dominant party always wants more land, more gold fields, and they keep breaking their treaty. To the Indian, the word is sacred. They don't want to break it. To break a word means bad luck. But with the white man, the words are written on paper and pretty soon they forget about it.
In 1875, the government's attempts to negotiate the sale of the Black Hills collapsed, and the time for talk was over. The Lakota were ordered onto the reservations, but Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse refused.
My father told me we were going to Crazy Horse, and that we would have to fight from then on, because there was no other way to keep our country. I was given a 6-shooter, like the soldiers had. I was told, "You are a man now." I was 13 years of age.
Throughout the spring of 1876, Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull were joined by 7,000 Indians, the Arapaho and Cheyenne tribes joining the Lakota Sioux in the biggest gathering of Indians the Plains had ever seen. In response, the federal government sent out 3 military units. Together, they might have dealt with the renegade Indian force. But the 7th Cavalry reached Bighorn first, and they were under the command of a loose cannon, the man who'd led the expedition to the Black Hills 2 years earlier, the man who'd stirred up the hornet's nest, General George Armstrong Custer.
Out of the dust came the soldiers on their big horses. They were all shooting, and there were women and children scattering down the hillside. But then another cry went up. "Crazy Horse is coming." And we heard the calls of "Hokah!" like a big wind roaring and the eagle bone whistle screaming, and my heart felt stronger, because it seemed that my people were all thunder beings, and the soldiers would all be rubbed out. And the valley was dark with dust and smoke, and everything was confusion.
No one knows for sure what happened at Little Bighorn. It was either a glorious last stand or an ignominious rout. It depends on who's telling the story. For the Indians, it was their moment of greatest triumph and a crushing blow against the pride of the Wasichu. But they'd won the battle, not the war.